中东，然后回教国家，然后这个最近比较有名，因为那个阿富汗那个塔利班的那个政权，那所以就会有比较负面的印象吧。
我的国家就是马来西亚，因为马来西亚它是3大种族嘛，就是马来人是最多，然后华人还有印度人，所以当我讲这个东西的时候，其实直接会想到马来西亚。
我觉得就是穆斯林是一个，在我看来是一个对宗教非常虔诚的一个，就是他们所有的教徒，我认识的所有教徒都是非常对伊斯兰教非常的虔诚的。那因为我自己身边有些人是对于宗教是不太感兴趣的，可是穆斯林却对伊斯兰教非常的专注。那我是觉得在我看来比较特别一点的地方。
First thing I think about Muslim people, like when I see them, since I grew up in a Muslim country, I'm really familiar with how they are and how they interact with people. And I feel like they're like a really kind people in general, but they're always bad people. But when I think of their practices, like how they wear hijab, I think it's really optional and it's really their choice. It's okay for people to have choices. And for their praying, I really don't have comments for that. We can pray all we want. So yeah, I think that's it.
一点点，就是像朝拜啊，然后不吃牛，
不吃猪肉，
不吃猪肉，然后剩下的比较仔细的就有点不太确定。
还蛮熟悉的，他们不能吃猪肉，然后不能摸狗，然后有斋戒月不能吃东西，还有就是一天要那个朝圣吧，那种拜拜和拜啊。
Actually, at the beginning, I only know that they cannot eat pork in their life. And I don't know, and I heard that if the people who haven't got married yet, they have to cover their head, something like that. But I have an experience that my roommates are the Muslim, so I can know that they have to do some like fasting in the year, and they have to pray quite often in a day. Yeah.
我只清楚就是之前上高中上地理课，有历史课的时候有教过说，就是他们主要的教义都是来自于可兰经啊，对，然后对就差不多这样子，就是其实自己本身的了解不到这样。
Daily practice, I don't get to see that much. But when I was in Pakistan, I would definitely saw someone pray. But besides that, the practices, I think not much about the daily practices, but I also talked to you before about the fasting. Yeah. Practices, I think I really like the meaning behind it about fasting, that if I'm not, well, if I'm wrong, you can correct me, that they fast because they want people to get to know how others feel, how many poor people feel, and also about sharing your food, your joy with people. That's the meaning of like Ramadans or other events, about sharing, that they care about. Like, I think Islam care a lot about how's that, like justice, about like the gap between the rich and poor, and that's really beautiful, and I don't see that in other religions that much, I think, about justice. Mm-hmm.
Welcome back, everyone. Most of you have joined us since yesterday and this morning, and will come back again tomorrow. But maybe some of you are here for the first time. So as you see from the design, the whole event, we structured under the theme Tafakkur. That is, through deep thinking, meditation, we might be able to obtain further understanding, further knowledge of reality, of the issues that we are considering this 3 days. That is the tension between politics and religion related to Islam or among different Muslim communities in different political situations, different societies. The second would be women's contestation, women's voices in Muslim societies. And the third, tomorrow, we will be discussing the possibility of theological emancipation or the competing theological interpretation among contemporary Muslims. And from yesterday to today, we saw or we listened to the keynote speeches about different marginalization or oppression of Muslim groups by different religious sects or different political societies. And we will be also watching films about Palestinian situation. And of course, also from the documentaries you've seen about Afghanistan current situation. So those crimes are not punished. No one really can press charges against either the Uyghur in Xinjiang or the honor killing in different Muslim communities, or the battles, the destruction of the families and cities in all these cities, countries. So those are the things that we start to wonder, what is Islam religion? How do we approach and understand? Of course, this afternoon we listened to several different interpretations, and but we also wonder how Muslim artists, they engage themselves in front of this difficult condition and situations. I'm so happy, so honored that we have Sally Saba, the Parastoo Theater's director, the group with us. But I will introduce Dr. Ke Chen, our postdoc fellow of the Center, International Center for Cultural Studies, who is also a theater major. He had practiced theater and also written his doctoral dissertation on theater in Taiwan. So, Karen, the floor is yours. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Liu. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome back to Tafakkur. And it's such an honor to have Mr. Saleh Sabab here as our speaker. I'm Colin Chen, postdoctoral fellow in ICCS-NYCU, Taiwan. And I'm so glad to see Saleh again. We have been cooperating with each other since 2019, I think. Mr. Saleh Sabab is a founder of Parastoo, now operating in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Mr. Saleh Sabab was graduated from Kabul University in 2001. He was trained as a writer and artist. After his graduation, Saleh began producing radio programs as a writer, director, Radio, Rehat Fadat Radio, and some other TV programs from 2005 to 2008. Starting from 2008, he was a writer on BBC radio program called New Home, New Life on the side. And on the other side, he started learning method of the theater of opera from Khan Irani. And unfortunately, in 2016, Mr. Saleh Sabab left his home country due to the security reason and now resides in Malaysia as a refugee. And before we start, I would like to highlight the timeline, as we knew after 9/11, the US Army invaded Afghanistan in 2001. Then the US Army overthrew the original regime and started its occupation for decades until maybe 2 months ago. And Saleh left his home country during the US occupation. Though we know there was power transition, the election in Afghanistan from 2002 and 2014. But little do we know what exactly happened in Afghanistan from the outside. So today, Mr. Saleh Sabab is going to tell us about the story of a Parastoo. So the Parastoo, or say the swallow's tail. So I will leave the floor to Saleh, and also we have Amin Kamrali to be the interpreter if Saleh needs to speak in Persian or Afghan. So Saleh, you have the floor, please.
Thank you so much for inviting us to Muslim Film Festival. I'm really happy, and we are with you and speak about some important thing in Afghanistan country. Actually, I don't like to speak and listen about Afghanistan story, because everything we heard about Afghanistan, that is all sad. But we need to understand, and for education, for learning, for future, I think it's very, very important. We knows about the history, what happened in past, and what is the situation of people in Afghanistan. This is all things for, I think for our information is very important. So it's a lot of things in Afghanistan happen. Because the time is limited today, religion and political issue in Afghanistan. Amin will help me about the translation. Thank you so much. قبل از اینکه من متولد شوم در افغانستان متاسفانه جنگ بوده، یعنی دقیقاً 43 سال قبل در تاریخ معاصر افغانستان جنگ شعله‌ور شد و گاهی جنگ کم بوده و گاهی زیاد بوده، گاهی دامنه جنگ افغانستان شمول بوده، گاهی در یک نقطه متمرکز بوده، اما به صورت کل 43 سال در افغانستان جنگ وجود داشته. یعنی قبل از اینکه من متولد شوم و بعد از من هر کس متولد شده، یعنی با صدای تفنگ، با شلیک و اینا صداها و آوازهایی است که هر روز جوانان و کودکان و مردم افغانستان میشنوند و صدای شلیک کردن، حتی توپ و تانک اینا دیگه عادی هست.
Before I was born, the war started in Afghanistan. It's been 43 years that the war has been going on. Sometimes it has been more, sometimes less, but the war has been consistent for 43 years. Before I was born, the war started, and people who were born after me, they hear the sound of bullets since they were born. And the sound of bullets, the sound of tanks, the sound of the war is something very normal for people in Afghanistan.
از نظر من به عنوان یک کسی که در افغانستان درس خواندم، در افغانستان متولد شدم و با قضایای افغانستان آشنا هستم، در واقع ریشه اصلی جنگ متاسفانه دین زدگی و سیاست زدگی هست در افغانستان و یکی مردم افغانستان بخصوص سیاستمداران افغانستان نتوانستند از دین و سیاست به عنوان یک ابزار مفید برای کشور استفاده کنند. به جایش متاسفانه دین و سیاست تبدیل شده به یک آفت، به ابزاری که یا به پدیده هایی که زندگی مردم قربانی میکنه و مردم تشویق به خشونت و جنگ و کشتن و قتل عام و نسل کشی میکنه. اینطوری است.
As an Afghan person who lived there and studied there, I see religion and politics, misuse of religion and politics in Afghanistan as the reason of the many problems that are the leaders of the country, the politicians use the religion and politics for killings, for genocide and violence in Afghanistan.
حرف من است که دین پدیده بدی نیست، پدیده قابل احترام هست و سیاست هم یک پدیده قابل احترام هست، اما در افغانستان متاسفانه از دین و سیاست استفاده بد شده، در واقع سوء استفاده شده برای حذف، برای کوبیدن، برای تشنج، برای ادامه جنگ و اینا. برای من یعنی دین و سیاست پدیده قابل احترام است، اما متاسفانه توسط سیاستمداران و حکومتداران افغانستان استفاده بد شده.
What I am trying to say is that religion and politics are both things that I respect, and they are what we can be benefited from. But my point is that the politicians and the leaders of Afghanistan has misused religion and politics and caused a lot of problems in the country.
شاید در خیلی کشورها یعنی فهم بد نسبت به دین و سیاست وجود داشته باشه، اما در افغانستان بدترین حالت استفاده از دین و سیاست متاسفانه حاکم بوده در طول تاریخ و اینکه پیامد و نتیجه فهم بد سبب خشونت شده، سبب نقض حقوق بشر شده، سبب نسل کشی شده، سبب جلوگیری از پیشرفت شده، سبب ویرانی کشور شده و سبب صدها بحران و چالش دیگر شده.
In many countries, perhaps religion and politics might not have a very good image, but I think the worst has been in Afghanistan, that in its history, it's been used for violence, for violation of human rights, for destruction, for genocide, and all sorts of issues.
در واقع دین و سیاست به سبک افغانی سبب یعنی دو عاملی هست که سبب ویرانی و تداوم جنگ در افغانستان شده، چون برداشت سیاسیون و روحانیون افغانستان از دین و سیاست متاسفانه ناقص هست و اینا به جای از اینکه مردم به همدلی، همبستگی و صلح تشویق کنه، از دین و سیاست به عنوان ابزار جنگ، ابزار حذف و نسل کشی استفاده میکنن.
Religion and politics have not been the Afghan version of religion and the Afghan version of politics, and the way the scholars of it, the leaders of it have understood it has been in a wrong way, that instead of using it for peace and for cooperation, it's been used as a tool for genocide, war, violence, and things like that.
در همین شرایط هیچ افغانستانی، هیچ شهروند افغانستان متاسفانه اختیار یا صلاحیت حجاب و پوشش خود ندارن. هیچ خانم افغانی یعنی صلاحیت مستقلانه بین یک انسان ندارن و دین و متاسفانه یک مسئله شخصی نیست و یکی دین یک پدیده میراثی هست در افغانستان که و هیچ کس اختیار انتخاب دین خود نداره و اینکه سهم افغانستان و افغانی ها متاسفانه از سیاست و دین فقط خشونت بوده.
In Afghanistan, unfortunately, no person has the freedom of wearing whatever they want to wear. For instance, women are not choosing their hijab, their clothes, and the religion is not a personal matter. Unfortunately, it's been used in a way that nobody actually can choose their religion. They are born with it, and that's the problem, that the freedom of religion does not exist in the country.
و بدتر از این بوده که همیشه دین در خدمت سیاست بوده. دین تحت کنترل سیاست بوده. به این معنا که از دین همیشه استفاده سیاسی شده در افغانستان و یکی با شعارهای دینی قشری از افغانستان کوبیده شده، سرکوب شده، نسل کشی شده، خانم ها صدایشان سرکوب شده. یعنی به این معنا که بدترین حالت در افغانستان ما تجربه میکنیم رابطه دین و سیاست، این که دین در خدمت سیاست هست و دین و سیاست هیچ وقتی در افغانستان جدا از هم نبوده. ما حکومت‌های مختلف را تجربه کردیم در طول تاریخ در افغانستان، اما هیچ وقت دین از سیاست جدا نبوده و در هیچ مقطعی از زمان یعنی سیاست دین از سیطره سیاست بیرون نشده، دین از خدمت سیاست بیرون نشده.
The religion has always been a tool for the politic, and it's been controlled by the politic. The religious slogans, religious sentiments have always been used to kill, to commit crimes, and it's been the worst relationship of religion and politics, what we have been seeing in Afghanistan, that the religion has always been serving the politic, and they have never been separated from each other. We have had so many different governments in Afghanistan in past, in the recent history, and in none of them we have seen religion and politics being separated. Religion has always been used by politics.
در افغانستان متاسفانه همیشه شعارها دینی و مذهبی بوده، اما رفتار و عملکردها همیشه نژادی و سیاسی بوده. این بدترین حالتی بوده که مردم تجربه کردن.
In Afghanistan, unfortunately, we have always had religious sentiments, religious slogans being propagated, but the actions have always been based on racial preferences, ethnical preferences, and that has been an unfortunate thing going on in Afghanistan.
به عنوان مثال در زمان حکومت عبدالرحمن خان قوم هزاره افغانستان با عبدالرحمن خان مشکل سیاسی داشتن و عبدالرحمن خان هم مشکل سیاسی با مردم هزاره افغانستان داشتن. اما چیکار کردن که ملاهای افغانستان از قندهار فتوای قتل عام هزاره ها رو صادر کردن. به این معنا که هزاره ها کافر هستن، اینا غیر مسلمان هستن و کشتن اینا واجب هست، حتما اینا باید کشته شود. از لحاظ دینی توجیه کردن و فرمان صادر شد، فتوای صادر شد که مردم قبول کردن که کشتن هزاره درست است و کشتن هزاره واجب است. بنابراین در زمان حکومت عبدالرحمن قتل عام هزاره ها شروع شد و 63% مردم هزاره در افغانستان قتل عام شدند. این تاثیر سیاست بر دین هست در واقع.
As an example, during the ruling of Abdul-Rahman Khan, who had a political problem with Hazara ethnicity in Afghanistan, what happened was that he convinced the mullahs, the religious leaders of Afghanistan, to issue a fatwa, to come up with these fatwas that killing Hazara people is religiously correct and it's right to do that. And they brought a religious excuse to do the killing and genocide of the Hazara ethnicity in Afghanistan, which killed somewhere around 63% of Hazara people were a victim of ethnic cleansing in Afghanistan at that time.
و حتی داستان‌هایی در تاریخ هست مورخین فرانسوی نوشتن، خارجی ها نوشتن، این که ابتدا ما اصطلاحی داریم به نام کله منار میگن در افغانستان که از کله هزاره ها یعنی منار میساختن و یک چیز شبیه ساختمان بلند. اما بعداً چون جایی نبود که برای کله منارها، عبدالرحمن خان فرمان داده بود که فقط 2 تا گوش هزاره رو برای ما بیارین، این کافی هست. یعنی آوردن 2 تا گوش مساوی به حذف فیزیکی یک هزاره بود و اینکه یک تعداد از آدم‌ها حتی وظیفه و شغل رسمی دولتی داشتن و معاش می‌گرفتن، دستمزد می‌گرفتن از دولت عبدالرحمن خان که یعنی هزاره کشی کارشون بود. اینا در داخل گونی 2 تا گوش می‌آوردن و در ازای هر 2 گوش اینا یک پولی دریافت می‌کردن. این داستان متأسفانه سالها بیشتر از 10-15 سال ادامه داشت از دوران حکومت عبدالرحمن خان.
Even historian who were foreign historians have written about the era when we have a word in Afghanistan that we call Kalle Menar, which is literally a tall, high building that has head of a human. And at his time, he was saying that to make those, we can use the ears of Hazara people. And some people had actually this job of killing a Hazara and bring the ears of it to him. And the kill during his time, the killing of Hazara people at the time.
و شما در این تاثیر می‌بینید که اینا هزاره هستن که زنجیر شدن، یعنی زنجیر در گردنشان مثل حیوان و در دستشان هست. اینا در واقع اسیر شدن و زنای هزاره در اون زمان به عنوان برده خرید و فروش می‌شدن و مرداشان کشته می‌شدن، زمین و دارایی و سرمایه‌شان مصادره می‌شد.
In this picture, you may see that these are Hazaras who were chained actually and were considered like animals at the time that would be chained, and Hazara women were being sold as a slave. Men would be killed and their properties would be taken away by others.
و اینکه حرف میست که یعنی از دین به عنوان یک ابزار استفاده شده برای کشتن، برای قتل عام و به جای اینکه دین همبستگی رو به وجود بیاره، دین همدیگر پذیری و احترام متقابل به وجود بیاره، متاسفانه ابزاری بوده برای حذف کشتن و این خیلی دردناک بوده و این یک بار نبوده، در طول تاریخ معاصر افغانستان این متاسفانه وجود داشته.
What I am trying to say is that the religion has been used as a tool for ethnic cleansing, and instead of solidarity, it was used to exclude people, and that has been going on in Afghanistan.
و این تصویری که شما می‌بینید در واقع این واقعی نیست، اما ساخته شده، نقاشی شده. این در واقع داستان 40 تا دختر هست. وقتی عساکر عبدالرحمن خان در حمله میکنه که اینا رو بازداشت کنه و به عنوان کنیز و برده بفروشه، اینا در یک بلندی در یک قله کوه بلند میشه و از اونجا یکی یکی خود پایین پرت میکنه، یعنی خودکشی میکنن. 40 تا دختر که احتمالاً همراهشان کودک هم بوده، اینا متاسفانه به خاطر ظلم عبدالرحمن خان خودکشی میکنن، از قله کوه پایین خود پرت میکنن. و این یک داستان خیلی معروف است در افغانستان که یک تعداد تلاش میکنن که این داستان را انکار کنن و یا او را یک افسانه جلوه بدن، در حالی که این بخشی از نسل کشی در افغانستان ادامه وجود داشته و داستان 40 دختران یک داستان واقعی است، در واقع یک فاجعه انسانی است که هیچ کس نمیتونه فراموش کنه. 40 تا دختر به عنوان برده و کنیز فروخته نشه، از قله کوه خود پایین میندازه. اینا اما هزارهایی بودن که در زندگی میکردن در افغانستان.
This is an illustrated image referring to a story in which during the era of Abdurrahman Khan, when 40 women, or around 40 women were going to be taken by the authorities as the slaves, they went on a high place and they jumped down and killed themselves so that they won't be a slave. And this is a story that many are trying to deny and ignoring it and dismiss it as a fiction, but it was a human catastrophe, a human tragedy that happened unfortunately during the era of Abdurrahman Khan.
و این در واقع همو کوی هست که این واقعی هست و گرفتهش. این همو کوی هست، همو منطقه است که از همو بالا اینا پایین سقوط کردن و خودکشی کردن، همین 40 تا دختر. و این در استان اروزگان افغانستان هست.
This is the actual place, actual mountain that the story of 40 girls happened, which is located in the Uruzgan province of Afghanistan.
خب از زمان عبدالرحمن خان تا حالا که طالبان مسلط است در افغانستان، متاسفانه نظام‌های مختلف را مردم افغانستان تجربه کردند. انواع نظام‌های اسلامی و کمونیستی اینا آمدن و رفتن. در تمام دوره‌ها سیاست از دین جدا نبود و در واقع دین ابزاری بود در خدمت سیاست. اما ضرر روند مستقیما متوجه مردم افغانستان بود. یعنی مردم افغانستان با این نگاه ابزاری مواجه بودن و جانشان از دست میدادن، مجبور به کج اجباری میشدن، مجبور به بردگی و نسل کشی میشدن. یعنی ما اگر 100 سال معاصر افغانستان در نظر بگیریم، در طول 100 سال یعنی همیشه دین در خدمت سیاست بودن.
Since Abdurrahman time until today, there has been several regimes that have come and gone, Islamic regimes, communist regime, and in all of them, religion was always used by politics, and the ones who were suffering from it were the people of Afghanistan. We can say that it's been now 100 years that this has been going on, and people of Afghanistan have been suffering from this misuse of religion by the politics.
متاسفانه در تاریخ معاصر افغانستان هیچ رژیمی نسبت به مردم افغانستان صادق نبوده. حتی حکومت‌های اسلامی و حکومت‌های چپگرا هیچ کدامشان با مردم افغانستان صادق نبوده و به جای از اینکه یک روحیه و فرهنگ ملی را در جغرافیای به نام افغانستان اینا تحکیم کنه، اینا بیشتر دنبال تحکیم ایدئولوژیشون از طریق میله تفنگ بود.
Unfortunately, in Afghanistan, all the regimes that have come, whether they were Islamic regimes or leftist regime, instead of focusing on the nation as a whole and promote the spirit of the nation being as one. They were all focusing on ideology with their guns.
در افغانستان خب در تاریخ معاصر افغانستان یعنی حکومت سکولاریسم مردم تجربه کردن در زمان امان الله خان که مجبور شد تبعید شود و حکومت فاشیستی عبدالرحمن خان و بعد از او سلسله حکومت عبدالرحمن مردم تجربه کردن. کمونیسم هم مردم افغانستان تجربه کرده، حکومت‌های اسلامیسم هم مردم افغانستان تجربه کرده، هیچ کدامشون برای ملت افغانستان دلسوز نبودن.
In Afghanistan, we have experienced a secular regime during the time of Amanullah Khan, who had to escape the country in the end. And after that, Abdul Rahman Khan came, whose regime was a fascist regime, and his people after him also continued his regime until the communists came, and then after that there were the Islamists, but the Afghan people never experienced a good government in these eras.
در واقع از سال 1979 تا 1992 دوره حاکمیت نظام کمونیستی در افغانستان که پیپل دموکراتیک پارتی آف افغانستان اسمشان بود و این 4 تا در واقع اینا رئیس جمهور دست نشانده اتحاد جماهیر شوروی در افغانستان بودن و این بدترین دوره برای مردم افغانستان بود، در حالی که حرف از دموکراسی زده میشد، حرف از حقوق بشر زده میشد، حرف از انسانیت زده میشد، اما بیشترین و بدترین فجایع در دوره حکومت کمونیستا در افغانستان پیش آمد که میلیون ها آدم کشته شد و صدها هزار نفر هنوزم یعنی معلوم نیست که زنده هستن، مرده هستن و اگر مردن کجا دفن شدن، مردم آواره شدن و اینا کسایی بودن که در واقع روشن فکر بودن اما خیلی قسی القلب بودن و اینا خیلی انسان‌های خشنی بودن و نتوانستن که یک حکومت مردمی سالم و صلح پرور و بنیادی در افغانستان ایجاد کنند.
From 1979 to 1992, it was the era of the communists in Afghanistan, which was one of the worst era that people of Afghanistan experienced. The Communist Party was called People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan, and although they were talking about democracy, it was one of the worst eras. The 4 presidents that you see their pictures were all puppets of USSR who were put there in the position by USSR. And during this time, millions of people were killed, hundreds of thousands disappeared that we don't know what happened to them, where they killed, where was the place that they were buried. Although they tried to look like they were intellectuals, but they were committing the worst of the crimes. They were very violent, and they could never establish a system that it is a people system.
و من حتی در دوران کمونیست‌ها جنگ خانه به خانه شروع شده بود. یعنی 2 تا برادر بودن، یکیش کمونیست بود و یکیش بر علیه کمونیست بود و من حتی در خانواده عمویم، یک عموی من کمونیست بود، گرایش کمونیستی داشت و یک عموی من ملا بود و بر علیه کمونیستا بودن. یعنی این 2 تا مثال است در اکثر خانواده‌های افغانستان. متاسفانه این داستان اتفاق افتاده بود که 2 تا برادر، یعنی یکیش کمونیست بود و یکیش غیر کمونیست بود، می‌جنگیدن با هم دیگه و یا هر دوش کشته می‌شدن یا یکیش کشته می‌شدن.
During this era, what had happened was that there had been conflict inside the houses. People were so divided that brother could be in war with the other brother. If one was a communist and one was against communism, they would be at conflict with each other. Even I had seen it. One of my uncles was a communist, and his brother, another uncle of mine, was a mullah who was against communism, and they were fighting. And this was something that happened in many houses, in many places, in many of the households in Afghanistan.
و تا اکنون هم متاسفانه این تراژدی ادامه داره. در زمان حکومت اشرف غنی و طالبان، یعنی چند سال قبل، دو تا برادر بودن که اینا متعلق به نژاد پشتون افغانستان بوده. یکیش سرباز دولتی بوده و یکیش سرباز طالبان بوده. و اینا جالب بوده که صبحانه رو با هم می‌خوردن، با هم دیگه حرف نمی‌زدن، با هم دیگه قهر بودن. بعد از صبحانه اینا بیرون می‌شدن. یکیش میرفت در سنگر طالبان و یکیش میرفت هم در سنگر دولت. با هم دیگه می‌جنگیدن. در نهایت هر دوشون کشته شد و اینا رو کنار هم دیگه دفن کردن، خاک کردن. روی قبر یکیش پرچم افغانستان بود، پرچم سه‌رنگ افغانستان، و روی قبر یکیش پرچم طالبان بود کنار هم. و این که در سال 2017 ما در واقع همین تصویر را ما برای تئاتر طعم تلخ تاریخ ما دیزاین کرده بودیم و دو تا قبر بود که کنار هم، دو تا برادر، یکیش پرچم دولتی افغانستان و یکیش پرچم طالبان. در واقع این روایت هایی است که در طول تاریخ متاسفانه به دلیل استفاده بعد از دین و سیاست.
And this tragedy still continues. For instance, during the time of the latest government of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani's government, there were two brothers. One was a Taliban soldier, and the other one was a soldier of the government of Afghanistan. And these two were fighting with each other. They would eat their breakfast together, although they wouldn't talk to each other. After their breakfast, they would leave the house. One would go in the camp of Taliban, and the other in the camp of the government, the army, and then they would fight with each other. And they both actually were killed, and they were buried next to each other. One of them, on their grave, it was the flag of Afghanistan, and the other one with the flag of Taliban was buried. And in 2017, in one of our theater production called The Bitter Taste of History, we designed the stage with this scene of two brothers being buried, one with a flag of Afghanistan and the other with the flag of Taliban. A sad story that has been going on in Afghanistan, and it is the result of using religion in politics in this way.
و حالا میخوایم بگوییم که در واقع دو جناح یا با همدیگه در افغانستان جنگیدن همیشه شعارشان یکی بوده، شعار دینی بوده. یعنی هم مجاهدین الله اکبر میگفتن میکشتن و هم غیر مجاهدین الله اکبر میگفتن میکشتن، و در طول همین 20 سال هم دولت میگفت الله اکبر میکشت طالبان و هم طالبان الله اکبر میگفت و میکشت سربازان دولتی را. یعنی همیشه اینطور، اکثر اوقات اینطوری بوده که هر دو طرف ادعای مسلمانی میکردن و هر دو طرف با شعار الله اکبر همدیگر را میکشتن و هیچ کدامشون باور نداشتن که طرف مقابلشون مسلمان واقعی است.
I want to tell how two sides of a war, they were fighting, and with one slogan, they were saying the same thing. In the past 20 years, saying that one side, the Mujahideen, would be killing by chanting Allahu Akbar, and the other side was also saying Allahu Akbar. They both were claiming to be Muslims, and they both were using this to kill the other one, to fight with the other one.
و 4 تا عکس که از رهبران کمونیست‌ها رو من نشان دادم در واقع 3 تایشان کشته شدن و آخرین رئیس جمهور نظام کمونیستی در افغانستان دکتر نجیب الله بود که توسط طالبا دار زده شد و جسدش دو روز در یک چهارراهی در شهر کابل آویزان بود و یعنی هیچ زعیم هیچ رئیس جمهور در افغانستان یعنی از مرگ طبیعی نمود، کلشان کشته شده در واقع.
The four communist president that I showed just now, the last one actually was executed publicly by Mujahideen in Afghanistan, and his body was hanging for 2 days in the street, and no leader actually in Afghanistan was killed, died in a natural way. They all were killed, and this has been going on so far.
همه اینا به خاطر این بوده که از دین و سیاست به عنوان ابزار برتری قومی و نژادی استفاده شده. از دین و سیاست متاسفانه یعنی برای اقتدارگرایی نژادی استفاده شده و یک قوم همیشه خود برتر از دیگران دانسته و یکی فکر کرده که قدرت فقط مال خودش باید باشه، بنابراین متوسل شده به شعارهای دینی و مذهبی برای حذف اقوام و نژادهای دیگر در افغانستان.
In all of these eras, all of these regimes that have been of the leaders who have been there, they used religion for racial reason, for bringing up their race, their ethnicity, and for their political motivations, and that has been similarity of all of these sides, all of them who have taken power in Afghanistan so far.
اینا در واقع مجاهدین هستن که دیدن با کمونیستا ساقط شد از افغانستان و اینا مسلح شدن در افغانستان، سالها جنگیدن و دوره حکومتداری مجاهدین در افغانستان 1992 تا 1996 بود که متاسفانه اینا وقت از اینکه با کمونیستا شکست خوردن دچار درگیری درونی شدن که معروف است به جنگ‌های داخلی کابل. یعنی در طول چند سال اینا متاسفانه کابل رو ویران کردن و شکاف‌های قومی و نژادی رو بیشتر کردن. اینا کسایی بودن که نمایندگی می‌کردن از دین و اسلام، اما وقتی که بحث قدرت مطرح شد اینا با همدیگه جنگ و درگیری و خشونت شروع کردن. میلیون ها انسان آواره شدن، کشته شدن، سربنیست شدن و اینا حتی نتوانستن که یک حکومتی نمبند قابل قبول در افغانستان ایجاد کنن.
These are the picture that you're seeing. These are the Mujahideen who defeated the communists and took over Afghanistan in 1992. It's a famous thing that happened that when they took over Afghanistan, they started to have conflict among themselves, and after defeating communists, they were divided, and this caused what was known as the civil wars of Kabul, that they started fighting with each other in Kabul. These are the people who were supposedly representing the religion. They were fighting for the religion, and they couldn't even establish a proper government during the time that they had taken over Afghanistan.
خب این در واقع نتیجه جهاد و حکومتداری مجاهدین در کابل هست و یعنی این یک تصویر از بخشی از کابل، اما تمام کابل اینطوری شده بود. تمام کابل یعنی ویران شده بود، تخریب شده بود و نتایج این حکومت مجاهدین ویرانی افغانستان بود، ویرانی زیربناها و سرمایه‌های ملی بود و ادامه دار شدن جنگ در افغانستان بود و یکی کشتار و مهاجرت میلیون ها انسان بود.
This picture is a part of Kabul, but it just represents the whole Kabul. This is the result of the years of Mujahideen in power, which destroyed Kabul and the country. this is the result of their jihad, their fight that was for their religion. The continuation of the war was one of the results, and people leaving their houses, leaving the country, migrating from Afghanistan.
و در دوره‌ای که مجاهدین با هم دیگه می جنگیدن، در واقع هفت حزب نظامی سیاسی در پاکستان تشکیل شده بود و 8 حزب در ایران. اینا با هم دیگه همه می جنگیدن و او یک وضعیت خیلی بدی بود که بعدش سبب شد که طالبان ظهور کنند. طالبان از استان قندهار افغانستان مربوط به یک نژاد خاص افغانستان اینا ظهور کردن بر علیه مجاهدین. طالبان باور داشتن که مجاهدین مسلمانان واقعی نیستند و بنابراین جنگ شکل عوض کرد و جنگ بین طالبان و گروه های مجاهدین شدت پیدا کرد و یک طالبان توانستن خیلی به راحتی مسلط شود در افغانستان و اینکه دوباره مجاهدین به خاطر منافع سیاسی و قدرتشان با همدیگه یکی شدن. اینا چند سال جنگیدن، کشور خراب کردن، اما وقتی دیدن که از آدرس طالبان منافع و قدرتشان در خطر است، دوباره با همدیگه متحد شدن.
During the time of Mujahideen in Afghanistan, because of the conflict among themselves, there were 7 armed groups in 7 different party and armed group in Pakistan, 8 different ones in Iran, and they all were fighting with each other. Because of that, the result of all this conflict among Mujahideen was the rise of Taliban, who used the opportunity to take over, and they came and said that the Mujahideen were not the real Muslims, we are the real Muslims. And it took the power. And later, when Mujahideen saw that it has benefit for them, they tried to be allies with Taliban, and again, for political purposes, they joined their then enemy.
و در دوره دموکراسی وقت در سال 2001 القاعده حمله کرد به آمریکا و برجای دخلور افغانستان و کلا طالبان حذف شد از میدان سیاست افغانستان و یک حکومت دموکراسی شکل گرفت. اما متاسفانه این حکومت دموکراسی پر از تقلب و تبعیض و فساد بود.
In 2001, after Al-Qaeda attack to US, the 9/11 incident, US took over, attacked Afghanistan, and Taliban were removed from power in Afghanistan, and a regime came that was called a democratic regime, but this democracy was with cheating and fraud and corruption.
و متاسفانه در این 20 سال که من خودم شخصا به یاد دارم همیشه سیاستمدارای افغانستان فریب میدادن مردم افغانستان و یکی دروغ میگفتن به مردم افغانستان و یکی خود دلسوز نشان میدادن اما خائن بودن و یکی نتوانستن بنیاد یا اساس یک حکومت قوی را اینا بگذارن.
And in the past 20 years, I have witnessed myself how the leaders of this regime were deceiving people of Afghanistan. They were lying to people, and they never were able to found a strong government that would work for everyone.
چرا در سال 2021 حکومت مردمی و دموکراسی که او بر مبنای انتخابات شکل می‌گرفت به راحتی سقوط کرد؟ دلیلش این بود که در حکومت که در واقع آمریکا آورده بود برای مردم افغانستان تقلب خیلی زیاد بود. اینا دلسوز نبودن، اینا احساس مسئولیت نمی‌کردن در صورت واقعی برای مردم افغانستان و یکی نیت واقعیشان تحکیم یک حکومت مردم سالار در افغانستان نبود. یعنی دغدغه حقوق بشری نداشتن، دغدغه مردم افغانستان نداشتن و اینا آماده بودن برای چور شپاول از کشورهای غربی و یکی فساد در واقع باعث شد که طالبان خیلی به راحتی دوباره در افغانستان در سال 2021 مسلط شود. این طالبان قدرت نظامیشان همون قدرت قبلی بود، اما اینکه چرا دولت مردم سالار افغانستان به راحتی سقوط کرد، دلیلش در واقع فساد و تقلب بود که مردم فاصله داشت با او حکومت، مردم حمایت نکرد از حکومت اشرف غنی، به این دلیل سقوط کرد و طالبان راحت ناامید شده بودن از حکومت اشرف غنی و اینکه دنیا حمایت نمیکرد، سپورت نمیکرد، به این دلیل طالبان راحت آمدن افغانستان گرفتن.
Why in 2021 Taliban could easily topple the democratic government of Afghanistan? The reason is because this government did not have the agenda of bringing human rights, bringing something that benefits everyone in Afghanistan. They were full of corruption. They were full of cheating. The way they came to power, and they were there just to use it as for their financial purposes, and they were betrayer to the people of Afghanistan, and this was why Afghans did not really support them, and there was a gap between government and the people of Afghanistan, and because of that they were weak. And while Taliban did not change, they didn't have a different power than years before, but they could easily take over Afghanistan because the government has become weak by distancing itself with people of Afghanistan because of the corruption and the mismanagement that they were doing in those years.
و حالا متاسفانه طالبان مسلط شده در افغانستان، حقوق بشر در خطر است، آزادی بیان در خطر است، حقوق شهروندی افغانستان در خطر است و سرنوشت مردم، آینده مردم تاریک هست و در طول تاریخ معاصر همیشه مردم افغانستان قربانی بوده. قربانی درجه یک تحولات سیاسی مردم افغانستان بوده و فعلا افغانستان در یک شرایط خیلی بد نفس میکشه، در یک شرایط خیلی تاریک و غم انگیز مردم افغانستان به سر میبره. 34 میلیون انسان جانش در خطر هست و حتی آرامش روحی، امنیت روحی ندارن. به خصوص خانم‌ها از آموزش محروم شدن، دانشگاه رفتن نمیتونن، آموزش نمیتونن و یک افغانستان برگشته به 100 سال قبل و یک شرایط خیلی وحشتناک حاکم است در افغانستان که ما به عنوان یک شهروند افغانستان همیشه رنج جای تاسف است.
The situation right now in Afghanistan is very, very much alarming. The freedom of speech is in danger. The freedom in general is in danger. Human rights is in danger. People of Afghanistan are in a very bad situation. 34 million people are suffering at the moment. Mostly the women are suffering who cannot access a lot of things, and they have been deprived of many things. And what has happened is that Afghanistan has gone back to 100 years ago. I am very, at the moment, I am very concerned of what is going on in Afghanistan.
ما در مورد مردم افغانستان فکر میکنم که همش باید شکنجه شوند، همش باید درد بکشن، همش منتظر یک لقمه نان باشه، همش باید از همه چیز باید رنج ببره و بترسه. فعلا شرایط افغانستان طوری است که در حال خالی شدن از متخصصین و افراد نخبه و دانشمند هست و یکی تمام سیستم ها متاسفانه در افغانستان در حال از بین رفتن و نابودی هست و کشور مسیر رو به عقب را متاسفانه طی میکنه و قربانی درجه یک این حالت در افغانستان زنان، کودکان و مردم افغانستان هست.
At the moment, unfortunately, in Afghanistan, people have to suffer. There is nothing else for them that it is in front. They have to suffer, they have to be tortured by the way things are. A lot of experts in every field are going out, and everything is becoming dysfunctional. Every part of the system is becoming dysfunctional, and the main victim of the situation right now are women and children in Afghanistan.
یک چیزی که خیلی مهم است باید یادآور شیم که طالبان تغییر نکردن. طالبای 1996 تا 2001 هست و یکی شعار تغییر میتن این دروغ است فقط به خاطر فریب جهان. یک مسئله خیلی مهمی دیگه که قبل از یک طالبان برای نجات دین نجنگید، برای نجات اسلام نجنگید. قبل از طالبان هم افغانستان کشور مسلمان بود و همه نماز میخواندن، همه یعنی مسلمان، دینی در افغانستان در خطر نبود، اما شعار طالبان در واقع نجات دین بود، نجات اسلام بود. من برای شما گفتم که شعار مذهبی و دینی هست اما عملکرد قومی و نژادی هست در افغانستان. این از رویکرد طالبان مشخص است. اینا آمدن که ما اسلام نجات میدیم. کجای اسلام در خطر بود؟ ما باید دارم قبل از حکومت طالبان در افغانستان همه نماز میخواندن، همه روال اصول اولیه دینی خود اجرا میکردن. هیچ دینی در خطر نبود در افغانستان. ما وقتی اینا آمدن تمام کابینه طالبان از یک نژاد است. اینا فقط به خاطر تحت شعار دینی به خاطر حاکمیت نژادیشان آمده، برای قدرت طلبی آمدن. هیچ حرف دیگه‌ای وجود نداره.
It's important to note that the Taliban have not changed. They are the same who were ruling from 96 to 2001. They were fighting and saying that we are coming to for Islam. They were saying that we are coming to save Islam, while Islam was not in danger. People in Afghanistan was an Islamic country. People were praying. People were Muslim, and their claim of change is invalid. That we haven't changed, and as I said before, that the slogan, the claims are always Islamic. They say we are doing this for Islam, for the religion, but you would see that their action is very much of a racial and ethnical action for their racial superiority, for their ethnical superiority. They have been fighting. If they were fighting for Islam, why now their cabinet is all from one ethnic group? So this was not a fight for Islam. This was for their own ethnical purposes.
Finished.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sally. Okay, then we open the floor for the discussion. And before that, I would like to thank Salib and Amin for your translation. Salib, for your, wow, you bring us from a pre-21st century history of in Afghanistan to now. And of course, maybe some of us would like to hear more about what happened now in Afghanistan. Okay, Professor, please, you can just speak up. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Sepas, for your presentation. I think it was very important that you started from Abdurrahman Khan, because it shows us that the problems in Afghanistan today did not start with the Taliban. Yes. Most people think it started with the Taliban, after the Mujahideen managed to kick the Russians out of Afghanistan, and that's when the problem started. So I think that was very important. I have two questions, one short question and a long question. The short question is, could you tell us who the artist was for Chehel Dokhtar, the 40 girls? I think many of us would be interested to know who the artist was. And then the other question is, I think requires a longer answer. You talked about ethnic problems, and this is something we don't hear much about We usually hear about oppression of women, and of course we hear about the persecution of Hazaras, of Shiites. We hear about that, but we don't hear much about the ethnic dimension of the conflict. So you mentioned something about that, and you said that the cabinet of the regime now are from one ethnic group. Could you give us some background about the ethnic situation in Afghanistan? What are the major ethnic groups? What are the minority ethnic groups? How are they divided also by, Sunni and Shia, and language, and what are the problems? Thank you.
Okay, maybe before I open, I invite other people to ask questions. Maybe I can follow up with the longer question, because I am also very confused and curious about that. Because we talk about Abu Rahma, and there is a question about the tribal politics, and the other words for the ethnic conflict. The other word for the ethnic conflict is the tribal conflict. And from my knowledge from the outside, that there's a lot of tribal conflicts in Afghanistan. So maybe for the ethnic groups, the conflict, the politics, and through all these very long historical periods in Afghanistan, maybe you can elaborate a bit more about this. The tribal policy, for example, you mentioned about Abu Rahman, and he was there against the colonial empire, but also enhanced the tribal politics in Afghanistan. So maybe for this part, I think maybe Salid can answer first. Is that right?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor. And it's a good question about the Chehel Dokhtaran. Is many artists like they paint the painting and drawing something about Chehel Dokhtaran story. The Chehel 40 girls. It's many type of یعنی نقاشی‌های مختلفی شده با زیاد وجود داره. من حالا دقیقا نمیدونم که کیها نقاشی کرده ایره، اما چند تا نقاش معروف نقاشی کرده. یکش فکر میکنم که آقای علی بابا اورنگ بوده، نمیدونم حالا کجاست. و حتی تئاتر ساخته شده، این چهل دختران تئاتر ساخته شده و در اروپا نمایش خورده بود و دقیقا نمیدونم. حالا من پیدا میکنم و میفرستم برای پروفسور.
So there have been a lot of artworks about referring to the historical event of 40 girls. I'm not sure of the exact artist of the artwork, but there were famous painters such as Ali Baba Orang, who might be one of those who have contributed painting about this issue. There has been also other artworks such as theater that has been performed. So I will, Saleh then said that he will find the name and will share it.
Yeah, I will share. در مورد سوال دوم، در واقع ریشه بحران افغانستان همه به تضادهای قومی و نژادی هست. دلیلش این است که قدرت طلبی قومی و نژادی در افغانستان به عنوان یک اصل قبول شده و یکی ما اقوام در افغانستان متاسفانه تقسیم بندی میکنن. مثل پشتونا میگن ما اکثریت هستیم، قدرت متعلق به ماست. تاجیکا میگن نه، هیچ نفوذ شماری در افغانستان صادقانه و بی‌طرف صورت نگرفته، بنابراین هیچ کسی، هیچ قومی در افغانستان نمیتونه به تنهایی حکومت تشکیل بده و قدرت تصاحب کنه. از این طرف مردم هزاره هستن، ازبک هستن. هزاره، پشتون، ازبک و تاجیک‌ها، اینا 4 قوم یا نژاد برتر در افغانستان هستن که اما هیچ کدامشون متاسفانه هنوز نفوذ شماری دقیق نشده و اینم یک مسئله سیاسی هست و حکومت چون در اختیار پشتونها بوده اجازه ندادن که اقوام نفوذ شماری شود، نژادها در افغانستان نفوذ شماری شود و یکی مشخص شود هر کس به اندازه شعاع وجودیشان ادعای قدرت کنه در واقع میترسن. پشتونها از این ترسیدن در طول تاریخ و خواستن که حاکمیتشان از طریق خشونت و تفنگ و مرمی و گلوله در واقع تثبیت کنه در افغانستان. بعضی هزارها. حالا اینو شما همین لطف کنین بعدش.
About the issue of ethnical issue in Afghanistan, ethnic and racial issue in Afghanistan, it has been accepted as a fact, as one big thing that each ethnic should pursue that for their own group, their own. They should have ethnical persuasion. Each of the ethnics, the four big ethnical group that they have in Afghanistan, the Pashtun, the Tajik, the Uzbeks, and Hazaras are all are considering themselves first, and they have been pursuing the ethnical interest. But the Pashtun are saying that they are the majority. But the Tajiks are saying that there has never been a unbiased census going on in Afghanistan, so that we have never counted this properly. So we might be the majority, and that is why Pashtun should not and cannot form a government by themselves only. And unfortunately, actually, we have not had a proper census, so we do not know the number, the exact number of each of these ethnic and how much of the population they are part of. But this has been the issue, the big issue that in Afghanistan, the main reason of the conflict in Afghanistan.
و در طول یعنی حکومتشون در اختیار پشتونها بوده و پشتونها قدرت به عنوان یک پدیده میراثی پشتونی حساب میکنن. بنابراین حتی وزارت داخلی افغانستان، وزارت خارجه افغانستان و رئیس جمهور افغانستان نمیتونه که یک هزاره باشه، نمیتونه که یک ازبک باشه. همیشه باید معاون باشه، همیشه باید در وزارت‌های کوچیک دیگه اینا تقسیم شوند اتنیک‌های دیگه، اما در رأس قدرت همیشه باید پشتونها باشه. این متاسفانه به عنوان یک باور در افغانستان به وجود آمده و جنگ افغانستان جنگ قدرت و جنگ قدرت طلبی نژادی و قومی هست. گاهی با شعار اسلامی، گاهی با شعار دموکراسی، گاهی با شعار کمونیستی و انواع شعارهای دیگه. اما در نهایت همه این بدبختی ها دلیلش قدرت طلبی نژادی قومی است در افغانستان. هیچ جنگ افغانستان، هیچ حداقل در 43 سال هیچ دلیل دیگری نداره جز قدرت طلبی قومی.
In the past 200 years, you would see the Pashtun, for example, believing that the country, the power in the country belongs to them. It's something that they inherited, and they have to pass to their next generations. It has to be, the power has to be within their own ethnic, and the conflicts have always been ethnical conflicts in Afghanistan, that sometimes it was in the name of religion, sometimes it was in the name of democracy, sometimes it was in the name of communism, but it was always a persuasion of ethnical interest in that was causing the conflicts in Afghanistan. And in fact, you can never have a senior minister, for example, in the government being a Hazara. The highest that they could, for example, get someone from the Hazara ethnicity would be, for example, a vice minister.
داستان‌های زیاد در طول 20 سال هم اتفاق افتاد. در زمان دموکراسی بود و یکی حتی کنکور برای مردم سهمیه بندی کردن. مثلا از استان‌های هزاره‌نشین داوطلب خیلی زیاد بودن و مناطق پشتون‌نشینشون درگیر جنگ بود. اونا افراد کمتری در دانشگاه می آمدن، بنابراین سهمیه بندی کردن و انواع ظلم و تبعیض‌های مختلف ما دیدیم در افغانستان. اما حالا وقتی بحث قومی در افغانستان باز میشه، در درون قوم پشتون چند تا قبیله یا قومی خودروزه دیگه وجود داره که در واقع در طول 200 سال قبیله دورانی در افغانستان حاکم بوده که متعلق به قوم برتر پشتون هاست که مثل اشرف غنی از قبیله اچکزای بود و دورانی ها دوست ندارن که غیر دورانی در رأس قدرت در افغانستان باشه. این هم یک مشکل هست و دورانی ها همیشه کوشش کردن که قبیله های کوچک پشتون هم از رأس قدرت حذف شود. بر علاوه قدرت طلبی قومی در درون یک قوم، ما هم قدرت طلبی قبیله‌ای در محدوده کوچکتر داریم. یعنی مشکل افغانستان متاسفانه پیچیده است.
So one thing that even during the past 20 years of the democratic government of Afghanistan, there were issues of ethnical issues. For instance, certain universities had reserved seats for certain ethnicities in different parts of Afghanistan. So the ethnical issue existed in the last 20 years when the democratic government was there. And another interesting thing about the ethnical issue in Afghanistan is that among Pashtun themselves in the past 200 years, the tribe that has been trying to hold the power were the tribe that is called Durrani, who Taliban are from. And for instance, Ashraf Ghani was also a Pashtu, but he was from another tribe called
Ashekzai.
Ashekzai. And
Ghaljayi megan, or Ghaljayi Ashekzai.
Ghaljayi or Ashekzai. So the Durrani, for example, the Durrani tribe in Afghanistan, among the Pashtun, do not want other tribes of Pashtun even, who are all from one ethnic group, but with there is even a conflict among the ethnic group, like the Pashtun. There are tribal conflicts even among them. So they did not want the power to be in the hands of other tribes than them. They wanted their dominance to continue in Afghanistan.
یعنی مؤسس حکومت پشتونها در افغانستان احمد شاه درانی بودن و سلسله حکومت درانی ها در افغانستان عبدالرحمن، امان الله خان، حبیب الله خان تا کرزی. چرا آمریکایی‌ها کرزی انتخاب کرد؟ چون از قندهار بود و درانی بود و یکی مورد قبول پشتونها بود. خب اما چون وقت اشرف غنی اومد جنگ شدت پیدا کرد، دلیل چی بود؟ که درانی نبود و درانی ها هیچ وقت نمیخواهد که قدرت در دست قبیله های کوچک دیگر باشه. ملا عمر درانی هست، ملا برادر درانی هست، همه اینها درانی هستند. فعلا یک جنگ پنهانی بین غلجایی که ما میگیم گروه حقانی و طالبان درانی هم وجود داره متاسفانه.
So the foundation of government of Afghanistan from Ahmad Shah, who was Ahmad Shah Durrani. They were Durranis, Abdurrahman Khan, Amanullah, and until even Karzai, why American wanted Karzai to be the first president, because he himself was a Durrani, and the situation was calmer during his time. Once Ashraf Ghani came to power, the conflict started more. So there is this hidden conflict or unspoken conflict among Pashtun themselves between Durrani and Ghaljai, or what we call Haqqani group. This has been happening. The conflict among these two groups within the Pashtun ethnicity.
برای من چیزی که خیلی دردآور است که جنگ قدرت از آدرس پشتون هاست و اونا جنگ قدرت قبیله‌ای را ایجاد کردن، اما هزارها باید قربانی بدن، اما تاجیک ها باید قربانی بدن، اما باید اهل هنود و سیک ها در افغانستان قربانی بدن، تا ازبک ها در افغانستان باید قربانی بدن. قربانیش اقوام دیگر هست متاسفانه.
What is tragic, perhaps, what is upsetting is that the power struggle of the Pashtun among themselves are costing other ethnicities are costing Hazaras, are costing Tajiks, are costing the Uzbek, are costing the Sikhs community in Afghanistan.
Okay, so I think Professor Liu will have some question.
Yeah, I was curious about the situation of the artists in Afghanistan. And I just looked it up and I thought they are marvelous. And many of them are artists, women artists actually did marvelous job. So my question would be, what happened to these people? I mean, educated, open-minded, bright artists, journalists, writers, educators. What will happen to them? Yeah. As you were one of those artists or journalists and who were forced to leave the country because, but I don't think everyone had a chance to leave the country, and especially for women. What do you think? Yeah, and of course also for children, the girls are not being able to receive education. Yeah.
So before Salih, before you answer, you want to answer first, or you want me to read the question from the Q&A first?
It's up to you.
Okay. So I try to read this question from the Q&A first, but it's from the anonymous attendee. I just read it. So start it. It's really very new for me as a student based in Southeast Asia to know about Afghanistan situation. We see shocking scenes from the news recently and bring me study more about Afghanistan, but still not easy to get the full picture. Really appreciate for Mr. Salih for sharing all this and putting us to see Afghanistan change, and also the BBC documentary that Mr. Shadid have introduced us to watch. I have attended other talk mentioned about Taliban, also very divide and cleavage, and this made me feel sad and also not sure what hope or change we can look for if as ordinary people. So I think this attendee just expressed her or his feeling about what you have been talking about, what happened in Afghanistan. So Salih, I will leave you to answer. Okay.
Thank you so much. آقا من اول در مورد سوال اول گپ می‌زنم که وضعیت هنرمندا، خبرنگارا، فعالین جامعه مدنی و زنای فعالین حقوق بشر، اینا وقتی طالبان مسلط شد در افغانستان، آمریکا و ناتو کوشش کردن که یک تعداد از اینا که مستقیما وصل بودن با اروپا و آمریکا، اینا را در واقع از افغانستان بیرون کنن. یک تعدادشون بیرون شده، اونا سیف هستن، اونا جانشان نجات داده شده. اما اکثر فعالین حقوق بشر، استادای دانشگاه، هنرمندای افغانستان، بخصوص هنرمندای افغانستان که اکثرشان ارتباط بیرونی نداشتن، متاسفانه اینا در افغانستان ماندن. بر علاوه از اینکه نمیتونه دیگه فعالیت هنری داشته باشن، اینا در خفا و پنهانی زندگی میکنن. و اولین باری که همین 3 ماه قبل طالبان در قندهار مسلط شد، اولین کسی را که کشت یک هنرمند. اونا با هنرمندان مشکل دارن، مشکل ایدئولوژیک داره، بخصوص با هنرمندان زن مشکل ایدئولوژیک دارن. یعنی از باور طالبان، یعنی هنر یک پدیده حرام و ضد دینی هست. بنابراین کسایی که هنرمند بوده مستقیما جانشان در خطر. ما راپورای مستقیم و دقیق دارم که خیلی از هنرمندا و خبرنگارا اینا بازداشت شده، شکنجه شده، تهدید شده و اختطاف شده و حتی کشته شده در طول همین 2 ماه در افغانستان. و یک شرایط خیلی سخت در افغانستان برای فعالین حقوق بشر، برای هنرمندا و زنان روشنفکر وجود داره. دنیا باید کمک کنه این قشری از مردم افغانستان که تحت حاکمیت طالبان اینا در انزوا هستن، اینا جانشان در خطر هست و تهدید میشه. حتی در درون خانهشان اینا احساس امنیت نمیکنه. بنابراین جهان و مدافعین حقوق بشر باید اینا رو حمایت کنه و مخصوص هنرمندا که حامی بیرونی ندارن خیلی زیاد، اینا متاسفانه مستقیم جانشان در خطره و خیلی هایشان بازداشت شده و شرایط خیلی بدی وجود داره.
Taliban in Afghanistan, activists, journalists, artists, those their lives were in danger. But those who were connected with NATO, with foreign governments, so these countries try to bring them out of Afghanistan during the first days. But there have been artists who have not been associated with these foreign powers, and they have been some of main victims of Taliban. When Taliban started to take over province by province in Afghanistan, the first people that they killed were artists, because they consider art as a haram and a forbidden, religiously forbidden matter. They have been targeting artists. Many of these artists in past few months have been silenced and have been living in hiding, hidden from Taliban, so that they won't be killed or harmed by the Taliban. So that has been what's going on. They are some of the main targets of Taliban, and I think the world needs to remember them, because they are the ones whose lives I know of incidents that of them being targeted in the past months.
It's so sad. I mean, it's really happening. Maybe outside world do not know all the details. Do you think is there any hope? We were discussing education might be hopes for the future or change for a better future. What do you think? Is this totally hopeless?
من ته دلم امیدواری دارم که طالبان دوام نمیارن، نمیتونن حکومت کنن، آدم متخصص ندارن، اصلا افراد متخصص نیست، اونا فقط جنگجو هستن که از کو آمدن وارد شهرها شدن و نمیتونن حکومت کنن. این یک مسئله است که اینا مردم افغانستان شاید قیام کنه بر علیه طالبان و امیدواری وجود داره که حکومت طالبان ساقط شود و یک حکومت فراگیر و مردمی و قابل قبول در افغانستان به وجود بیاید. اما بازم بحث سیاسی است. ما دیروز شنیدیم که روسیه گفت ما به زودی حکومت طالبان رو به رسمیت میشناسیم. وقتی روسیه بشناسه، کشورهای آسیای میانه هم به رسمیت میشناسه و خیلی از کشورهای دیگه حکومت طالبان به رسمیت میشناسه و اینا مشروعیت حقوقی و جهانی پیدا میکنن، بنابراین چی نمیشه، یعنی به راحتی سقوط نمیکنه حکومتشون. و چون بحث منافع اقتصادی کشورها مطرح هست، خیلی به دلیل منافع اقتصادی کوشش میکنن طالبان را سپورت کنه، حمایت کنه و به رسمیت بشناسه. اما بازم قربانی درجه یک مردم افغانستان هست متاسفانه. و چیزی که تاریخ افغانستان شاهد بوده ای است که هیچ چیزی دقیقاً قابل پیش بینی نیست. ما نمیتونیم بگوییم که واقعا در آینده فردا چه اتفاقی میفته و یک سال بعد چه اتفاقی میفته. هیچ چیزی قابل پیش بینی نیست. اما مردم افغانستان امید داره که این شرایط زود بگذره و اونا صاحب زندگی خودشون شدن.
Saleh says, in the bottom of my heart, I have this hope that the government of Taliban regime would not maintain its power. They cannot continue, and they may collapse because they do not have the knowledge of governing, because they are, a lot of them are just fighters who have come from mountains, and they have not been to urban areas. They have no knowledge of governing, and they may collapse people may, in fact, come out and try to bring them down, and a government made of people be in charge in future. Although, unfortunately, there are the geopolitical and political issues that taking place. For instance, Russia yesterday was taking this stance that they may soon recognize Taliban's government's legitimacy, and following Russia, we would be seeing Central Asian governments recognizing Taliban, and this could follow with by other countries. But it's very difficult to predict what is happening in Afghanistan because of all these things that are happening and
yes,
and are coming to action.
Farid, I think Professor Farid,
so Farid,
unmute yourself. Yeah,
Professor Farid, please. Yes,
I'm unmuted.
Yes, please. Yes,
okay.
Please. Yes.
Since this is a film festival, and I think many people here are interested in film and art and so on, could you tell us something about your activities in Parastoo Theatre? What do you do, and how is it related to Afghanistan and to the situation of refugees in Malaysia, of Afghan refugees in Malaysia?
yes.
Thank you so much. ما قبل از لاکداون ما یک پروژه خیلی بزرگ داشتیم و یکی ریفوجی و غیر ریفوجی با هم کار میکردن. ما هدف ما است که همه با هم، چون انسان هستیم دیگر ریفوجی و غیر ریفوجی نداریم، همه باید با هم کار کنن و ما می‌خواستیم نشان بدیم، نه اینکه در موردش فقط حرف بزنیم. اما لاکداون شد، پروژه پرستو متاسفانه متوقف شد. بعد در زمان لاکداون ما پروژه‌های در مورد خشونت‌های خانگی اینا را انجام دادیم برای 5 تا کامیونیتی ریفیوجی و یک خواستیم کمک کنیم در زمان در شرایط بحرانی پناهنده ها و غیر پناهنده ها را و چالش‌هایی که وجود داره اینا. ما داستانایی که در مالزی کار میکنیم در واقع یک بخشش مربوط میشه به مردم افغانستان. ما به صورت غیر مستقیم ارتباط داریم با مردم افغانستان و داستان‌ها سرمنشأش افغانستان هست و نه تنها افغانستان بلکه کشورهایی که مهاجرین و پناهنده‌هاش در مالزی زندگی میکنن. ما می‌خوایم که از طریق هنر در واقع از طریق تئاتر وصل شود، پناهنده‌ها با جامعه میزبان وصل شود و این شکاف و این فاصله و این بدبینی و بیگناهی راستی که وجود داره ای از بین بره و ما هم احساس مسئولیت میکنیم که در مالزی هستیم، از این آب و هوا تنفس میکنیم، بنابراین وظیفه انسانی داریم، وظیفه اجتماعی داریم که کارهایی باید انجام بدیم برای رفع چالش‌ها و برای پیدا کردن راه حل‌ها. ما متوقف مورد تامین حقوق کارگرها هست که اسلامکسی سپورت میکنه و بحث مشکلات سلامت روان هست، اینا رو کار میکنیم و پروژه های دیگه داریم. کوشش میکنیم که به سمت پرفورمنس فیزیکی بریم و دوباره اکتوران بیشتر در پرستو بیاید و کارش شروع کنیم. و یک چیزی که پرستو فعلا راجستر شده به صورت یک کمپانی خیریه و ما میتونیم که رسمی کار کنیم و این هم از طریق دوستان پرستو میسر شد. و من فکر میکنم که هنر میتونه که خیلی از سوالها رو جواب بده، میتونه خیلی از چالش‌ها رو حل کنه و خیلی از فاصله ها رو از بین ببره. هنر میتونه که شناخت متقابل به وجود بیاره، هنر میتونه که وسیله آموزش باشه، هنر میتونه وسیله همبستگی و درک متقابل باشه.
We in Parastoo Theatre were working before the COVID-19 pandemic in the direction of trying to closing the gap between the refugee communities in Malaysia and the local community to try to promote solidarity. And we were telling our stories that part of it was coming from a story of Afghanistan, a story of refugees, the reason they leave their country, the reason they came here, and try to make an understanding between the local and the refugee communities. the lockdowns of the COVID pandemic, of course, temporarily stopped some of the theater activities, but then we tried not to stop, and we then, because of the crisis that refugees were going through in Malaysia, we developed shows based on the issues that were coming. We developed a show about the issue of domestic violence, and we are having future projects about labor rights of refugees in Malaysia, which we are collaborating with NGOs and other organizations. The issue of mental health of refugees, and now that Parastoo is we have recently registered ourselves in Malaysia as a non-profit company. We are hoping to do more projects and to talk about our stories, the story of other refugees that are here, and because we think that art is the language that can bring the change and make the situation better.
ویژگی که پرستو داره است که نه تنها در مورد چالش‌ها حرف میزنه، ما چالش‌ها رو نشان میدیم. عملا خیلی مهمه، چالش‌ها رو ما نشان میدیم و این که مخاطبین ما در واقع وادار به فکر کردن میشه. این خیلی مهمه که باید فکر کنیم. به عنوان یک شهروند، به عنوان یک انسان، باید در مورد چالش‌ها باید فکر کنیم. ما نمیتونیم از کنار چالش‌ها عبور کنیم. این حرف جدی پرستو هست و این که ما بحث چالش‌ها را در واقع تبدیل می‌کنیم به یک گفتمان اجتماعی. این خیلی مهم است، نه به صورت مقطعی. بحث ازدواج زیر سن ما 2 سال در مالزی چرخاندیم و 22 بار برای بیش از 6000 انسان نمایش داده شد و این که تبدیل شده بود به یک گفتمان اجتماعی. ما می‌خوایم چالش‌ها را تبدیل کنیم به یک گفتمان. وقتی تبدیل شد به گفتمان، در واقع راه حل پیدا میشه و احساس مسئولیت می‌کنه شهروندان. این خیلی مهم است. این سیستمی است که ما کار می‌کنیم.
In Parastoo, the way we work is not only we talk about the challenges and issues, we show them and make people, the audiences, feel them and put them in the position of trying to get involved, that they have to get involved and they have to try to be part of the conversation, the social, the conversations that go in the society. We focused on the issue of child marriage, for instance, and for 2 years in Malaysia, the conversation was going in different places. We staged the show about child marriage for 22 times for thousands of Malaysian audiences, and we make people feeling responsible, that they have to act on the issues.
Thank you. And I would like to let you know that Salib and Parastoo also, we have been cooperating with each other for at least maybe 2 years. And we just have our online show in July. And it's about the domestic violence during the pandemic. It's about overcoming the crisis. And I just want to say thank you very much, Salib.
Thank you so much.
And to have you to share all of this with us. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Very much, very much. Yeah, we feel this is such a very unfortunate history in the past century. It's been on and on. Yeah, we hope there is a point to stop it. Okay, see you next time. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Okay.